It was September 38 or 39.
That was when Russia...
That was the Russia occupied Poland, because Poland was right away divided in two parts, the eastern and western Poland.
That was the agreement between Germany...
Germany and Poland, and between Stalin and... In 1930, I remember it was September 38 or 39.
That was when Russia...
That was the Russia occupied Poland, because Poland was right away divided in two parts, the eastern and western Poland.
That was the agreement between Germany...
Germany and Poland, and between Stalin and Hitler. They made the pact, okay? When the Jews from West Poland started coming in to East Poland and were telling us of the atrocities, what's going on there with Jews, how the Germans are treating them, we still did not believe that this is possible.
This was in what year?
That was about 39, 40, okay? The Russians were already in Poland. The smaller towns in Poland were badly treated by the Russians, but the bigger towns had a little better than the smaller towns. So we didn't feel so much the occupation by the Russians. Then I could work, I could go to school, and when the war broke out in the 41 between the Russians and the Germans.
Now, let's get the time frame.
Yeah, okay.
In 1939,
yeah,
in September, the Germans invaded Poland, is that
West Poland, Western
West
Poland.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And the Russians...
The Russian invaded the East Poland.
I see.
That was the division.
Okay.
They were there for 2 years. Then the war broke out again, because why did the war broke out? Because the Americans, if you remember, Americans and the British and the French were they declared a war against the German, and they with the bombs started falling, and war is war. I cannot explain better.
Now, Lviv was a large city.
Lviv is large. I think we had 500,000 population or more. Jews were, I think, 300,000 Jews.
Was your family a strong part of the Jewish community?
Okay, I have to go back a little bit. My family was a conservative Jewish family. My father died very young. I was 9 years old. I barely remember him. And my mother never remarried. She had 2 children, and she raised us all by herself. So that much I can tell you. Now, you asked me before, you want to know how did I know what the Nazis are, what they are doing. When the Nazis marched into Poland, that's how much I remember. Okay, the Russians marched into Poland with tanks. The Germans marched into Poland with bands, with orchestras, and like everybody is curious to run to look what is it, so that my mother went too. She marched after to see. All the people that were marching after the German to see who is coming in were rounded up immediately. They could spot a Jew. You don't have to look too far to find a Jew. They brought them into a school building. And the school, they had all the Jews locked up and brought in big dogs, shepherd dogs, wild dogs. These dogs were injected with something, I don't know what, to tear the people up. They on the spot, that was their first day greeting. My mother got out from just going into the room. We had Ukrainian student living in our apartment. He was studying to become, first he was studying to become a clergyman, then he dropped the clergy and studied on the medicine school. He saw her and he got her out from the people that were marching in there. Then he said, look, people, the situation won't be good, it will not be easy. I think you will have to move out. For a while, I'm here, I can help you. No, he was a decent man, okay? But it won't last for long. We have moved everything from our apartment and went down to one section only. We had a nice apartment, we went only to one little room. And one day, he came in running quickly, and that was the time, I don't remember exactly the date, when they started to round up the Jews to send them all into the ghettos, to put them there. So everything had to be cleared, and the Jews had to go to the ghettos. And that was something interesting, but then I said, it's just a sheer miracle, I don't know how to say it. Since we were in this, I and my aunt, my mother was already in ghetto, my brother was already in ghetto. I and my mother's sister lived still in the same apartment, and he came in running and said, look, you have to get out of here, or you don't have even time to get out of here. Yeah. Just sit quiet here. And we were in one room, and they knocked at the door, and the father, the neighbor who lived there and had one son, asks his son, go look who it is. So the boy is 14 years old. He goes out to the door, and they ask him, are here any Jews living? And he says, no, there are no Jews here in this house. And they looked at him, and they took his word for, you know.
Now, this was the German military?
Yes. And we were sitting here and could see everything through the Venetian blinds, only through the little opening in it, what's going on. They left. We still didn't move. We didn't breathe, not only didn't move. We stopped breathing, I think, at that time. After a minute or so, they're coming back with dogs. And I said to my Aunt Dora, that's it, and we embrace each other, and that's it, that's the day. They went down to the basement to look with the dogs if they would feel any Jews. They came out, they didn't find anybody, they left. And the father of this boy asked him, who was it? So he said, nobody, somebody asked for somebody if they live still here, and they left. Okay, that was it. In an hour or so, this man, that Ukrainian, came, took us both out, and gave us a room to stay. Say, well, we'll see what will happen. Just sit here and don't go out. If you move in a big city from one area to the other, nobody knows you anyway.
Now, he gave you a room in another house?
In another house in another part of the city. After a while, maybe a day or so, he came back and he says, you remember in this house where you used to live, there moved in a German officer, a mayor who knows his rank. And he will give you papers. He wants to give you papers, and you will live on Aryan papers.
Now, this was a German officer that you didn't know?
That I didn't know that he was a Jew.
Oh, my.
Okay? And he has his family, his wife and his brother. His parents were already killed in Germany 2 years before. Now, he comes in here with the German army. I didn't know that he was a Jew. Anyway, since this one, first Ukrainian, who wanted to be a clergyman, he knew how to write the birth certificate with Latin, in Latin and so on. And he stamped it. It was all right. It cost us a few $100 a piece, and we got the false papers. But he says, wait a minute, you are not secure 100%. Just stay a while. We'll see what will develop. My mother was already in the ghetto. He got papers for my brother too, and he took my brothers to a family in Buchach.
That's where?
There in Buchach is a small town and on Ukrainian border with Poland and Ukraine today. And he lived there till the very end. He and there was another Jewish boy. I know that they survived. They lived with this family, and they had the meanings to help out the Jewish boys in resistance in the woods that were hiding. They were bringing them food and whatever they needed, whatever they could. Now, I know that my brother survived to the very end of the war, but if you remember from the history, when the Germans were retreating, they still started to create another army, the Fifth Army, I think they were the Wehrmacht and the werewolves. The werewolves was the latest, the lowest kind of army out of the senior citizens, old people. They dragged them out, they gave them uniforms and guns and go and look still for Jews, not even fight with the Russians, just look for Jews. And they started to look for young boys that were not yet in the army. And they found my brother. And that's how I know that my brother was killed, because they knew immediately that he was a Jew. They just had to strip him, you know, like every soldier who goes to the army. Because this I learned later in DP camps from people who were in Buchach. But I'm still not taking the last word for it. Anyway, my mother was in ghetto. If you ever heard of the Piaski in Lwów, Piaski are the sand hills where they used to put people up the hill and then they shooting down and they fell down into the graves. That's where my mother died, in Piaski. I lived in another with my aunt in another part of town. She was in another part and I was in another part. We still have contact with each other through this Ukrainian man.
What was this man's name?
I cannot reveal. Yeah, I don't want to dig out.
That's okay.
Okay? And he may be not alive anymore. Because he was much younger, much older at that time than I was. Anyway, she died on Piaskis. We were in different part of town. He also found me a job. I got a job as a governor, as a governess to 3 children of a German officer. I had to take care of them, and I had to furnish him apartment for him. He didn't know, of course. He knew I was a Poland, okay? He treated me like a Polish housekeeper, something like this. I took care of his children.
Did he ever ask to look at your papers?
Oh yeah, they looked at the papers, but they were so stupid, you know. They didn't know. They looked at the papers. The papers, what we did with the papers, we ruined them, so they will be a little bit ruined. I got the papers. They didn't know. The papers, the birth papers were written in Latin. You write female or masculine for genders. And on my, instead of female, was written masculine. And I knew a little Latin because I went to school. I learned Latin. And I recognized immediately that mistake. So everything was all right, but this was the one mistake. I ruined the paper. I folded it like here, so that the gender disappeared. It was only Irene. I lived with Irene. I was born with Irene. That's my name, Irene, okay? I never changed my name because to make it authentic Polish, I picked up a Polish calendar which had all the saints. And in Poland, calendars were marked by the names of the saints. And I found that was, on my birthday, that was the name Irene. And I kept it. So anyway, now you ask me if they ever checked my papers. I will come to it. Ask me if I forget, because it's important. And he trusts me. So I was there for a while, arranged him the apartment and took care of the children. From there, I got a better job, because I was already more secure, and I got a job in a lumber yard. Now, I was familiar a little bit with lumber yard, because my father was, I don't know how to use this word in English, and all the words escape me. He was in the lumber yard business in Carpathian, small chain of trains that bring the lumber down to the mills and so on and so on. So I knew something about the wood and about lumbers and about things, and I made up a story, and I got a job there as a secretary, personal secretary in Lviv. I worked there for a while. I met a couple of German people. Some were decent, some were dogs. There was one young German man who saved a Jewish girl from the concentration camp. But what God wants, he dies at 42. He got a heart attack. How did I know that he died? Because I met this girl in Frankfurt, where my husband became a rabbi in Frankfurt after the war. And she said, you know who I am? You remember William Schle? I said, yes, of course. Say, you know, he was my husband. You know, he saved me from concentration camp. And I didn't know. I knew him as a German. Anyway, one day, when the war broke out between Americans and Russians, when they started bombarding the Germany and coming into Poland again, that was at the end, but 42, yeah, I think it was 42 or 43. They bombarded Lviv, and at that day, you're asking me for another miracle. I had a dream that my mother came to me, and she like poked me and said, watch out, look up, and watch out. And I'm looking up, and there are black ribbons floating above me. And I said, okay, that's something. Something's going to happen here. And that day they bombarded Lviv, and when we had to go and to the office and clean up the office, whatever that happened. But when coming out of the office, I was blackmailed by a Jewish girl. Why I say Jewish girl? Because she spoke Yiddish to me.
And what did she say?
She says, you are either going to give me money and all your clothing, or you are going with me right away here to the SS across the street, because I know who you are, I know where your mother is, and I know where your brother is. All the time I could deny to everybody who would stop me or would recognize me, and I would deny. They're crazy. There are 1,000 people that look alike. I could not deny, because she said the truth. I couldn't say, no, you are lying. Anyway, I said, okay, I can give you money. That's all I can give you some money. I can give you some of my clothes, but they're in different places. I went to she went with me. She had a carriage and a horse, a troshka. And she went with me to my house, not to my house, to my aunt's hiding place. I said to her, you wait here, and I will come down with the money. Don't follow me, because you will get nothing. I'd rather go with you to the SS. So she stood there. She didn't follow me.
How did you feel when she approached you? What was...
Do you feel my heart bumping now already? Like a tremor, like an earthquake. But I had to stay firm.
And you managed that.
And I managed, thanks God. I don't know where I got all that strength. And, you know, anyway, I got money from my aunt. I said, look, you have to give me money or we are both doomed. So she gave me some 300 zlotys, and I gave it to her, and she gave me some money. Sylvia, I didn't have my money. She gave me some money to get, I said, I'm going out of town. I gave her the money, and I'm going out of town. You don't look for me, I will find you. You wait till you hear from me. How did I get out from this girl? I gave her money, but I knew that it will not be the end, because she still wants my clothing, she wants this, she wants that. I went and back into the house, and I knew that there was an alley to get around and to get out to another street that she won't know where I am. And from there, I went to the railroad station. I hopped in the first train that just came in. I didn't look which direction it goes. I just hopped into the train and I left. Now, she didn't find me. I said, look, I just have to go to fix my girdle or something. I went into the house and I disappeared. That's how I escaped Lviv. From there...
Now, tell me when that was. Do you recall what year that was?
That was already about 42, 43, something around 43. Okay? I really don't, if I jump over, I don't know how. From there, I went over cities till I landed in Krakow without anything.
Now, where in Poland is Krakow?
Now, Krakow's there where she lived, where her parents lived. This is in the western part. It's on the, did it belong to Silesia one time? I think it was the western part of Poland.
So you traveled,
southwest.
You traveled from
one
east
part
to west.
To west, yeah. This is southwest of Poland.
Did anybody ask you for your papers on the trains?
Oh, yeah. You know, there was that father of this boy that saved me, you know, that time. He was on that train, and he recognized me, but he wasn't sure, very sure, but I think he recognized me. So he just asked for my ticket and didn't say anything. And I knew if he recognized me, that's not good. So I got out of that train. I went to another train. So I wasn't there, because I was always ahead of them. So anyway, I went to Krakow. There I didn't have anything, but just to walk, to go and to look for a room where to stay overnight, it's not very good. So I went to a store and I had my last $5 or something. I bought myself a small valise that I didn't have what to put in it, but I had something, a luggage to go in. Anyway, I went there to a Polish family and I asked if I could stay overnight.
Now, how did you find this family?
I just went from door to door. The Poles lived everywhere. Were only Poles. The Jews weren't there anymore at that time. And I told them that I'm going to Warsaw, and I lost everything there. There was, I don't know, something happened on the road. Or what. And so I stayed there overnight. From there, I went to Warsaw. Now, what do we... Okay.
We've got time.
In Warsaw, I found a woman. She was Jewish.
Now, how did you find her?
I didn't find her. She found me.
How did she find you?
I don't know. Jews have some feeling for other Jews. Not so Poles. Poles were stupid. Excuse me, if I may say it. They couldn't. You know, but I think Jews are like the Spürhunde, like the dogs that find you by the by the smell. She says, "Come on, don't worry. I have somebody here who needs help in his office. and he was a German officer. And can you type? Do you speak? Of course I spoke German, because I spoke German from school that I learned, and then I started, any occupation was in Poland, I started to learn. When Russian came, I started to learn Russian. When Germans came, I started to learn German. And I knew German also from years before a little. Yes, I can type, I can do office work, and I got office work there in the personnel department in Warsaw. I was in heaven. I got a small little room, but it was with string attached. I will give you a small room in an apartment. You have to keep this apartment clean. You are not allowed anybody in or out, not authorized.
Who told you that?
The Germans. You know, the office, the director of the office. You can live there. You have where to sleep. It will not cost you anything. You have to take care of this apartment. That's Kleinigkeit. It's a big deal. Of course I can do it. So I worked in this office, and I took care of the apartment, and I lived there, and nobody bothered me. Now, why did they need this apartment? They have sometimes some dignitaries coming to Warsaw, the city, and they were afraid to stay in the hotels. They preferred to stay in a small, unsuspected. Why? Because they were afraid of Poles. The Poles were organizing their Anderson army that time. You know, the
resistance?
The revenge army, yes. And they were killing them. They were afraid to be killed by them. They trusted me. They trusted me. They went to their bedroom. They had gun on one side, a gun on the other side. But they trusted me that I will not let anybody in, and nobody will come in here. They knew that nobody's come to me. But during a week or 2 times period, nobody ever bothered me. I made out, since I was working in the personnel department, I was able to get out cards, working ID cards that they retrieved either from Poles and sent them to a labor camp, and they took away their ID cards. And what I did, and I don't want you to tell anybody, nobody will know it, I took off old cards that were on this ID card, and I put the picture of my aunt, and I put so that the stamps fitted exactly the place where it was stamped. You know how you stamp ID card? Half stamp is on the picture and half stamp is on the other side. So I have fitted the picture exactly where the other side of the stamp comes in. So I had ID card with a name, with a working place for my aunt, and I sent it. I said, what happened? What will be, will be.
Now,
I
where
mailed
did
it to
you
her,
send it?
to Lviv.
And you sent it to the address where you knew she was staying?
Where my aunt was, because that time she lived with this man, lived in the same apartment, okay? So I sent it to his address, and he gave it to her. He packed her, and she came to Warsaw. That was about 42 already, 1942, because for 2 years I hid her in my apartment, and she lived practically only in a bed that wasn't bigger than these 2 chairs here, or a closet where she could hide for the day when she felt that somebody is in the house, in the apartment, that she would hide in the closet. Otherwise,
this was the apartment in Warsaw?
Yes.
You had a funny story to tell about that.
That was funny. Yeah, she played tricks on me sometimes. Yeah, there were 2 men who came one day, and they were talking to them. They were you know, I spoke German. And it's funny. She doesn't let anybody into her room. She must be hiding there, somebody. When I heard this, it was black in front of my eyes. So I told her, look, you get out of here. I have to go to work. You go and stay either in bed or hide in the closet or do whatever. I made up the bed so it looked that somebody is there. And I left intentionally the door open so they could come in. And my bed was high with pillows, with everything, because sometimes in Poland was very cold. And like jokingly one throws the other, let's see who is there under our blankets. And of course the bed was empty. So I knew that she was hiding. So I left. And they saw there's nobody in here and they could go out. I left to work and they went to work too. I came at that day, I come earlier home because I was a little frightened about her. And I'm looking, bed is empty, and I'm looking in the closet. Maybe she's hiding there, but I see all my clothes and all her clothes are there. I didn't know where could she be. She couldn't get out without me. She didn't have even a key to get out of the apartment. I'm looking in the closet and I'm pushing like the dresses, and then suddenly a hand stretches out to me. If I didn't laugh that time or screamed, I don't know what would have happened that time. You know? Yeah.
And she stayed with you for how long?
She stayed till the war broke out, till the invasion of Poland, till the before the in Warsaw ghetto uprising. How you could say it in German, in English? The uprising.
The Warsaw ghetto uprising.
Yeah, the uprising. That's right. I left her there. She couldn't get out. Finally, when everybody got out of the apartment, she had a back door that she went down. And she thought that I was dead because she saw somebody lying there on the front yard, and she thought that was me. And she left. And she left the building. She couldn't walk because she didn't walk in shoes for 2 years, but the pair of shoes that she had was very high heels. She was a very fancy, elegant lady. She walks with the heels, and here the Germans are running already, and they're having Polish people, and you know that they round up. Forget the Jews weren't there anymore. Anyway, she walks and she limps, and she sees a German soldier going straight to her. And who are you? And she starts speaking to him. And she says, look, I'm walking to my relatives here in the street. My heel broke. Could you help me to break the other heel? And of course he obliged. And he let her go because she said the truth. She walked there.
And what happened to you during that time?
Now, where was I at that time? I was working in that office when at the last days already, when the war broke out, when the Russians came into Poland. They attacked Poland from the east side of the river, of the Vistula, from the east side. And the Americans came from the other side, and the French and the Russians came from the other side. So they thought there's no other way to get out of here. They surrounded us, about 50 Polish people, into a truck, turning to us with bayonets, with guns,
now, who was
with
this?
rifles.
Who did that?
The Germans.
Germans did.
The German army. Because they said, if the Russians will come from here, they will shoot at them, and they will see that they have Poles here. They will not shoot at Poles. They will not shoot at us. Neither will the French shoot at us or the Americans. Whoever will call us, we will have somebody who would be with us then, because we want to survive. We'll say, please don't shoot, we are Poles, don't shoot. They got us out with bayonets to a town where they want to take us to a labor camp. And from a different part of Poland, they still were strong. And I escaped there to a small town in Silesia, where through the help of one family who had a vinegar factory. I went there, I said, look, I need a job. I'm coming from that part of, and I worked there in this department of agricultural thing, and I wanted to go to Krakow, but I couldn't get to Krakow anymore. Could I stay here with you for a while? So I walked there. You know, there's a small town, Miszków, by Gliwice. Okay, between Częstochowa and Gliwice. It's a Silesia part of Poland, southern part of Poland. And he said, yeah, can you type? Can you do for me the personnel, the business? I said, of course.
Now, were they Jewish? Or
No,
they
no,
of course not. They were Polish.
They were German. They were German. Sure, the German, they took everything what was Polish, what was Jewish before, what was Polish before. There's vinegar factory. So anyway, I got the job in the office. I got the job in the vinegar factory, so I had to wash the bottles and make vinegar. And don't ask me how the chemical process of vinegar, because this I had to learn too. I had to work in trenches because the German army was afraid. That when the Americans and French and the Russians will start coming unto them, they were cutting. Have you ever heard of trenches that were cut through southern Poland to Maginot Line? Have you heard of Maginot Line? Yeah. Was also cut. The southern part of Poland was cut, the trenches. So when the army comes, the enemy army comes, they will fall into the trenches. This is what I did. That's what kept me strong all these years.
Now, at the time that you worked in the vinegar factory?
Yes, that was, I worked on 3 jobs.
Oh, my.
But I had a roof over my head and I had food. I still didn't know where my aunt is. I didn't know. What happened there, when the war ended, okay, at the end of the war.
This was in 1945.
That's right, 44, 45. The Germans retreated, the Russians came in, and the Russians took over this part, and the eastern part of Poland, and the western part of Poland. The first day of the taking over, all the neighbors started shooting each other, because they had to get even. You sent my brother to concentration camp. You sent my sister to labor camp. You did this for me. And whoever had a gun, they were just shooting. There were 3 days of shooting. It was terrible. I didn't go out for 2 weeks at least from my room. I met a Polish girl. She worked, the whole family worked on the railroad. And she secured for me a ticket to go to Warsaw. I went to Warsaw, I went to that building where I lived, and I was looking for my aunt.
Now this was after the war?
That was after the war, a month or 2 after the war. I went and I found the maintenance man's wife, and she said, some lady was here and left me a piece of paper. Maybe this is what's important for you. Go ahead, look at it. Was it important for me? She wrote, she was there. She left the address where she is. She went to a village in Poland, not very far from Warsaw, but I knew already where I could find her. Okay? That was already after the war. I found her, and of course my whole life changed here. And I don't know how much time you still have.
Keep talking.
Yeah, okay, because I don't know where I am.
Keep talking.
Because I will skip something again. We went to Gliwice. Yeah, first with this Polish girl, I went to Częstochowa. I was also saved in Częstochowa, and Częstochowa is like cloisters, very important cloisters in Poland. I was there, and I found this Polish girl, and she took me to her apartment, and that's how I got to swim around a little bit. After I found my aunt, we went to Lviv. I didn't say to this Polish girl who I was, that I was Jewish, nothing. I went to, before still I went to Mishkov, which was the small town where I worked. Then to Lviv. I went to Częstochowa. I was in Częstochowa, I was working there in chemical and laboratories. They still didn't know that I was Jewish. Oh, now I say, why didn't know that? Why didn't I say I am Jewish, I survived? You know why? Because I was afraid. If you remember of the story in Kielce, have you ever heard of Kielce pogroms?
No.
Kielce pogroms was a Jewish girl fell in love with a Polish boy. She survived with her grandmother. And that's also that region, Krakow, western part of Poland. She survived with her grandmother, and she invites this Polish boy to her home for dinner or for coffee or what, and he sees this old grandmother, and this old grandmother looks Jewish. And he looks at her, but you are Jewish. She says, of course I am Jewish. He takes out a gun and kills them. And that's what made me leave Poland.
This was after the war?
That was after the war, shortly after the war. That's what made me leave. I start looking for connections, and I finally got a connection through Bricha. You're familiar with Bricha, and they were taking out Polish people, Polish survivors, out from Poland. They took me out. I went to Vienna, and in Vienna I had the intention to go to Israel, but I met my husband in Vienna, and that transient hospital, Rothschild's hospital, was there, where they kept all the people coming from Poland to ship them either to Vienna, to Israel, or whatever, by what means. I didn't have means to go to Israel by myself. Anyway, I was related to my husband, and his brother found me there. Oh, his brother found me there in this hospital. He looked at the girls, and he says, "Come," he says to his friend, "You know, let's look who came today from Poland." And he goes and goes and goes, and he sees somebody familiar, and there was I'm his second cousin. And of course, that was it. So and he took me out and said, "You are not going anywhere, you're staying with us. Our parents live in Switzerland, and we live here now. We have an apartment, you're staying with us. Don't rush, don't go anywhere." And that was a different cycle of my life started. And then I married, and I went from there to Frankfurt and lived with my husband and so on. My husband, he left from Berlin. He went to Vienna because Vienna was his hometown. Not that he was born there, but he was raised in Vienna. He has already rabbinate background, rabbinical background, and so on. He went, and he knew he can't stay there, that he has to go back east, because no Jew can survive now in the occupation. He went through the Niemandsland in Czechoslovakia. That was when they took all the Jews, but I'm going back a few years, and they put them into no man's land because they didn't know what to do with the Jews yet.
That was Eastern Europe?
And West, yes.
Poland and Czechoslovakia?
And Czechoslovakia. He went there on his own. He said, "Why should I wait till they ship me? I can ship myself." He started walking, and he left. He went to Poland. We still lived in Lwów. He found us in Lwów. He knew that he has relatives in Poland. Anyway, he found us. He couldn't live in Poland because they were already, how do you call the people that ran away from other countries? Aliens, okay? He was an alien there. He wasn't a Pole. So the Russians were pushing the Jews that came from West Europe to Russia. He was already on the train to go to Russia. He jumped out of this train and he said, I don't want to be in an organized shipment. I can do it by myself. And he and his brother, they started to walk to Russia. They went to deep to Russia and to the border of China, in Frunze. This is where they survived the war. But before I told you that he was in Niemandsland, in Czechoslovakia, on Czechoslovakian border, they learned, he was a rabbi. He knew that he will not be a rabbi anywhere. He says, maybe there are books in the libraries I could study something. He learned organic chemistry. He learned to make silk flowers and organic chemistry. When he went to Russia, and it was in winter time, he was at that time, I don't know, in Kiev, I think, or where, before he went to China border. So he went to a factory. He says, I need a job. I need to work. So he found a Jewish man there, and he says he speaks with him Yiddish. He cannot speak Russian yet, but he speaks some Yiddish. He spoke German. He said, I need to work. So he says to him, what do you know? He says, you know, I know organic chemistry. I can do it. And you gave me a book. I will study and I will do whatever I need. He says, you know what? The most important thing now that we need is soap. You know, it's so very cold here, and it blows from all the winds that blow. No party, nothing can hold good from the wind. These are two things. We need soap, we need party that would seal the windows. This will be our lifesaver. So he told them what he needs, the chemicals, what he needs to, soda and something else, and fat, oil to use. Anyway, he started to work, and he makes a sample of one party and say, you bring me a sample, then I will tell you if I can give you a job. So next day he brings him a sample, and he tells him Yiddish, and he says, look, I've tried, and it holds water, and he doesn't, you blow, the wind doesn't go through. It must be good. So, okay, I will take it to my commander. And he comes back, say, nichevo, nichevo. You know, in Russian, nichevo means do niczego, or in Polish, do niczego, or it means nishkosha. Yiddish is saying not too bad.
Not bad, yes.
Not too bad. But if you know one language and it resembles some other language, so from nichevo came out do niczego. In Polish, that taugt nicht. It's not good. It's bad. So he makes another sample, and the same goes to the second, check. And he comes with the same answer, nichevo. And they're frantic. They're working there day and night. Finally, the guy said, no, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and work. Now they started to work. And they started to eat. And he tells also, and they didn't eat meat in months and months, who knows how long. And comes a girl, young girl, and he asks her, can I have some meat here? She says, no, meat, we don't have meat. But look, they're pigeons. She said, choo, 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 choo. And the pigeon jumps on her shoulder, and she takes the pigeon and breaks his neck. And said, okay, here, you can have meat. I said, no, thank you. At the end, they came back to Vienna, okay? And this is how I found them in Vienna.
Now, you had some adventures getting to Vienna, I understand.
I had some adventures, wait a minute, but there were so many that I can't recall what you want to know, really, what's important.
Well, with the Bricha, they took you through the mountains?
To the mountains, yeah, it wasn't too bad for me. We had to walk a little bit through the mountains. Oh, and the train, that was adventure. On the train, they were stopping on the Czech border. And they wouldn't let us go through because they knew that we were Jews. they were Jews, and we started talking Greeks. We said we are Greeks. And they would let Greeks go, but not Jews. They speak Greek.
Now, how did you speak Greek?
Yiddish. And they would talk also Yiddish, but we talk to Army that we speak Greek. So we say, does anybody speak here Greek? I say, I spoke Russian. I could speak Russian because in the 2 years I learned the language. So they knew, they recognized the Jews. Does anybody speak here Greek? Yeah, we speak Greek. I said, okay, let them go too. They're Greek people, let them go back to their homeland.
Now, how many people got through that way?
Oh, there was quite a bit, quite a bit of people.
Now, how did you eventually wind up in the United States?
The United States was already, I was married at that time, and my husband was rabbi in Frankfurt. Now, my husband was blackmailed. Not blackmailed, but how would you say? He got a drawbrief, threatening letters from Nazis. Say, well, by the Nazis. There were some leftovers of Nazis. They had threatening letters. You should have been done with you already long ago. What are you doing here? And so he got these letters, and he said, you know what, I'm not going to stay. If this is the land that sent me these letters, I'm not going to stay. And he made up his mind. I'm going out of here. He wanted to go to Israel originally. He went to Israel for, you know, for search. And he said the life in Israel will be very, very hard for us. We have a small child. Let's look for something else. It was easier for us to go to United States. He said, at least there I have friends who can help me. And he had all his friends from the university, from Vienna. He met them all in New York. We went to Cincinnati. For 1 year, he got a little job in the German community there. From Cincinnati, went to New York for a while. I got a job in New York as a commercial artist because I did this too. And from there, he started to study English because his work only depends on his language. And he got a job there, and there we were just moving a couple years here, 5 years there, 6 years here. And that what took us about 28 years of living together till we could have lived so nice. But he went and died. So, and we had one son, who in the meantime married too. He married an Israeli, very lovely Israeli girl. And I have three beautiful grandchildren. And
I wanted to ask whether May has any questions for you.
I just wanted to know, thank you very much for your talk, you're wonderful. I wanted to know where your aunt ended up.
Oh, my aunt ended in New York. Yeah, she came to New York.
Via Cincinnati with you?
No, she went. She lived in New York. But she worked for a while, and she had her Social Security, and she had her restitution sent to her somehow. She was a very, very smart woman, and she knew how to get out with you know what she needed for her. And she needed. I was just lucky. I was.
No, it sounds as though you were very brave and very smart.
I just wanted to have, you know, when I was in that, do I have 2 minutes? Because if you want to, how bright she was. When I was living in that apartment in Warsaw, I had to cook sometimes for these 2 men. I didn't know how to cook. She cooked. One day, they sent me a box like this. I said, maybe for gratitude, they sent me flowers. And opened the box, and there's something slimy, long like a snake. That was an eel. And they wanted to have an eel, you know. So if I can cook eel, of course I can do eel. I said, you just go to work, let me stay home today. No, she cut up the eel and she makes and she cooks and she prepares. Now they're coming home and they're opening the little window from the kitchen to the living room. What I am doing there. And she put my sleeve up and she had a big knife with spattered blood from that eel, and she smears my face, and I'm holding that knife. I say, you get out of here or you have no eel. And he sees my hand like that.
Well, it's so good that you could keep
Yeah,
that kind of humor going in such a terrible situation.
One day, it was day before Christmas, they got a turkey, and they're going back to Berlin, home, and they're taking that turkey with them. And they just went to work, and I went to work too. She locked the turkey in their room. When they came back, they couldn't get it. They couldn't get the turkey.
Oh my! Well,
Oh my God! They went without it.
We must stop now, and we thank you very much for your testimony. It's a fascinating story.
It was sad, and I took it. You know, today I look at it and I say, so many people had so much harder to live, so much work, and I had actually everything what I needed, not in abundance, but I could survive with it. And of course I saved my aunt, because if it wouldn't be for her, I would probably kill couple of them, because I had the possibility to kill. What would happen to her if I would kill them? Because I could finish them off, but I didn't do it, because I thought of her.
Well, thank you very much for coming today and for giving us your testimony.
Thank you.
I hope my children, my grandchildren will remember something from it.
They'll have the tape.